Welcome here. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. We're in for a really big treat, and I'm very, very excited to be able to share this evening with you. My name is Charlene Deal, and I'm the director of the Winnipeg International Writers Festival. And as many of you know, because you've come to other shows, we do a festival every September, but increasingly we're doing some off-season programming, and we're very, very glad that you could join us for this special one, the Governor General's Literary Awards Gala. I'd like to begin by recognizing the support of the Canada Council for the Arts, without whom this event could not take place. Would you please put your hands together for Canada Council? I think a lot of us don't necessarily understand or comprehend, I guess, the importance of government support for arts, including literature, and I'm extremely grateful to the Canada Council. We couldn't do our festival without their support, and we definitely couldn't run this event, but the Governor General's Awards would flounder as well, so we're very grateful for the Canada Council for inviting us to present Governor General's Literary Awards winners. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the very wonderful McNally Robinson bookseller, longtime partner of the festival. Would you please put your hands together for them? We do a lot of our programming at the store, which is possibly the most beautiful bookstore in Canada, but it's great when they can join us at theatre events as well. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank the CCFM for their hospitality and their beautiful theatre space. Would you please put your hands together for the CCFM? It's important to thank the tech people, at the front edge of the show, because they can really make stuff impossible if you're not nice to them. I begin by, it's indelicate to point that out, but we really are happy with the sound. Thanks, the sound is great, and the light's beautiful, right? It's good in here? Yeah. I begin by acknowledging that we are gathered together on Treaty 1 territory, and I would like to ask Katerina Vermette, also a GG winner, to bring a greeting at the very front edge of this event. Kate, where are you?
Hello. Charlene asked me to give greetings and to acknowledge this space, and something that I am always honored to do. Acknowledging that we are on Treaty 1 territory as signed by the Anishinaabe people, and we are also in Winnipeg, Manitoba, the heart of the Métis Nation, of which I am a member. That is something I am always pleased to do. And I am just so excited to be here. And I did not accept tobacco, and I will not do a prayer for a greeting. And I feel like a bit of a grown-up being asked to give greetings. I've never given territorial greetings before. I feel like I'm really grown up now. The teenage daughters aside, I'm a grown-up. So this is really great. So thank you. I know we were going to have a wonderful time, and I was backstage fangirling a little bit, and I have to extend my fangirl a little bit more. Martha Brooks wrote 2 Moons in August, and that was my first book that I ever wrote or ever read by a Manitoba author. And it was the first book that said people from here can write about here. So it was really special. And in my bio research, I found out Susan Nielsen used to write for Degrassi and Degrassi Junior High. So her influence on my childhood is unbounded. And Raziel? I'm sorry. We have been watching you, and we are honored that you come to this place where you are from. You are from Winnipeg, which I think is amazing. We are big fans of you in our house, and the way you have handled all this, some would say controversy, I would say it is bigotry, with such humor and grace. You have been a true role model for my kids. So thank you very much for that. Greetings. See you.
I'm realizing that for those of us who work and live inside the book and publishing circles, we know what the Governor General's Literary Awards mean. But I think often I forget that people who read books don't necessarily notice these things. But I want to begin this evening, before I introduce these winners, by saying that this is pretty much the highest award Canada has to bestow on its writers. Once a year, under several categories, I think there might be 10 categories, there are 2 winners, one in English and one in French, for each genre. And this is kind of a broad category because children's text reaches, from first picture books with small bit of text to mature young adult writing. And I'm particularly interested in YA writing. I think it's often overlooked by a general readership, but many, many adults I've talked to have remarked on how pertinent and challenging and stylish and exciting young adult writing has become. It's certainly a different field from the books that I was reading when I was a teen. And some of the most exciting books I read every year in preparation for the festival are marketed in this group, this young adult literature area. I remember asking Tim Wynne-Jones, who's another writer for kids that I love, why he wrote for kids, or what made him write for kids, and he said, well, I write for kids, but I write for everybody who ever was a kid. And I think that tonight's writers really epitomize that. They write to a young adult readership, but they write for all of us who have ever been teenagers. And God knows, if you found that the best time of your life, then come talk to me, because you're in the smallest demographic. And tonight's writers are all taking the hold of the tough challenges of adolescence and really teasing them open and looking at the parts that are painful and the parts that are funny, the parts that are confusing. And these characters that you're going to meet tonight are just exquisite, very rounded, interesting humans. So our first writer is Martha Brooks, who's already got her first shout out. That was nice, Kate. She grew up near Ninette, that's got to be one of the most beautiful valleys in all of Manitoba. I think you'd probably agree with that.
Oh, I do.
She's, when she's not writing books, she's written a lot of books, and I'm thinking offhand about Mystic Lake, Being with Henry, Queen of Hearts, Bone Dance. She last year ventured into picture book territory with a beautiful book called Winter Moon Song, and she's got a book coming out this spring called Letters to Brian, which is a memoir sort of charting the first year after her husband died. When she's not writing books, she's a jazz singer, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to get her to sing a song for us later. Do you think? It's a microphone. I've yet to meet a singer who won't take advantage of a microphone. But what I've invited her here to do is to share with you True Confessions of a Heartless Girl, which won the Governor General's Literary Award in 2002. Please welcome Martha Brooks.
My jazz partner, Jeff Presliff. My voice is changing, and I've become a contralto. He said, "It's very smoky, Martha." He said, "That's good." So, here we go. This is Noreen Stahl. This is her confession of anger at the age of 16. She's our heroine. She's the heartless girl. Her sister's name is Gladys. Her mother's name is Grace, but they call her Amazing because she isn't. And the stepfather's name is Bob, but they call him Stupid Head. When we were kids, it was always Gladys who was there in the dark when everything were bad. Always Gladys who would move closer in their bed, sometimes holding her as the storms of their parents' relationship were going full blast outside their bedroom door. Always Gladys whispering, "I love you," to the stars and back again. That's how much I love you. Don't forget, okay? Right up to the stars. All the while hugging her so tightly that she almost stopped breathing. It was always Gladys beside her if ever that door swung open. And there would be her stepfather, outlined by the dim hall light, standing like a scary monster, just waiting for one more peep out of them, almost hoping for it, it seemed, so there would be hell to pay. And the first out-of-body experience she ever had happened during one of those times. She was 7 years old and she couldn't shut up. Something just possessed her. She was convulsed in non-stop giggles besides Gladys. Suddenly he was in the room, and then across it. He gave her this look. There was a sickening, sharp pain in her arm as he lifted her into the air. Another part of her, she would later recollect, watched all this happen, looked down and watched Gladys cry and yell at him. After a million years, he dropped her. She fell back on the bed. Silence. "Little shit," he said finally, and left the room. Her arm felt as if it were still up in the ceiling. Later, though, it began to hurt like it was being jabbed from the inside by sharp little pokey things all trying to get out. She cried until Gladys left the room and came back with Amazing, who examined her and swore at Stupid Head, calling him a crazy bastard, even though he wasn't there to hear her. Gladys made her a sling out of green cloth. She wore it like a badge of honor for weeks, much longer than she needed to, and damned his eyes every time he looked at her. Even back then, she was damning him to hell. He didn't touch her after that. He picked on Gladys instead, until she escaped and married Jerry and moved out. Whenever she remembers how Stupid Head picked on Gladys, never giving her a moment's peace, always calling her a fat cow and a whore, and how she, Noreen, never once stuck up for her, she puts her pillow over her face in deep, twisting shame and helpless anger. Amazing and Stupid Head had a trashy-mouthed small dog named Ginger that they got a month after Noreen went to live with Gladys. It was taught to beg by barking, so the thing never shut up, especially on Sundays when she was forced to go and visit them. Jerry would put his thick, freckled arm around her. "Have a great time, kid," he'd say with a big, dumb smile. His eyes would go all watery. He couldn't stand Stupid Head. "Stupid Head is your father," Noreen pleaded one time with Gladys. "Why don't you and Jerry come too?" "Because I don't like Stupid Head any more than you do, and I don't have to." Gladys looked at Jerry. He looked back, still smiling. Crazy about her, like she was some kind of angel, like he thought that she was good, he was good. Together they were good beyond mere mortals. It was all so sweet it could seriously give you diabetes. "But they don't even like me," Noreen said accusingly, hoping that would work and she wouldn't have to go. "Listen, we have a deal, you and me," Gladys would now pull out her weird mental contortions about family loyalty. "They have to see you once a week or you can't live with me and Jerry. It's only fair, Noreen. They are your parents after all. When you turn 17, you can do whatever you want about them, okay? That's the rule. 17, Gladys stressed. "So go on now, and please try to be pleasant, okay? Even alcoholics deserve respect," Jerry added piously. He had moved closer to Gladys, his arm now around her, as if they were trying to think about how, as soon as she was gone, they would breathe deep sighs and have a nice time together, finally free of this crazy person. Sometimes she hates them both, and this feeling sits like a glowing, hard lump of coal under her rib cage, right next to her jealous heart. She could show anyone the exact burning spot if they cared to ask, and this is the worst anger of all. It's so bad sometimes she thinks her heart will stop beating, and if it does, it'll serve her right. Then we have Noreen at 17, confession of covetousness. Wesley Cuthand. She has no clear memory of how he looked when they first met. She'd been stuck between Saskatoon and Winnipeg, walking along the highway, fed up with that last guy she'd hitched a ride with, an asshole who had given her the creeps. She remembers that much. When he'd stopped his car just before Brandon had got out to take a leak in the ditch, she jumped out and ran across a field. "Hey, come back here, you whore," he shouted. She gave him the finger, kept on running. 10 minutes after that, she got up her nerve to walk along the highway again, and this truck slid up beside her. She was still jumpy as hell from the last ride. On the other hand, Wesley has no such problems remembering the details of how she looked on their first meeting. She had a backpack on her back and the skinniest little ass he had ever seen. The sun was almost down except for that piece of sky that was still on fire. That's how I remember it. Oh yeah. And the fields and the hills off to the south, they were kind of blue and shadowy. That's exactly how he says it, about the land and the shadows. The sky was on fire, etc., etc. Sometimes he even starts there, goes on about her skinny little ass, and then I stopped the truck. You got in, your eyes all big and pretty in your face. You said it was dark, Wesley. How could you see them? Oh, I did. I saw them. Okay, go on. He puts his hand over his heart. I thought my breath would never come back. Gives a low chuckle. Go on. I'm not going to hurry. Relax, Noreen. This is a good story. Well then, tell it. Next comes the part where he offered her a stick of gum to calm her. She took it from him, eased it up to her mouth, never once taking her scared eyes off him. The first words either one of us spoke, the truck still wasn't moving, came from Wesley, who said, laughing, "You look like a jackrabbit." Apparently, she almost jumped out of her skin before asking why, after which she stared straight ahead. The best part about hearing this story is feeling safe, lying on Wesley's bed, the sheets all tangled up and sour smelling from not being washed in a while, his arm around her head against his chest while she listens to his voice rumble on through as he speaks. He recounts what he said next. Why do you look like a jackrabbit? Yeah, you think I look funny? No. I think you're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life. He tells this part of the story very seriously. Sometimes, odd as it seems, there are even tears in his eyes. That is Wesley. He values the truth. The fact that he hardly ever gets it never stops him from expecting it. So back at the truck near Brandon, she said, "You are a weirdo," and yanked at the door handle. "I'll drive you anywhere you want," said Wesley, and of course he meant it. Anywhere? Absolutely anywhere. "All right," said Noreen, "drive me to Winnipeg." "I was only going as far as Brandon," said Wesley, "and I'm almost out of gas." "Then piss off," said Noreen, and again she started to get out of the truck. "I'll drive you. I'll get more gas. What are you doing out here?" "Walking," said Noreen, and that's all you need to know. They spent 2 days and 3 nights in a cheap hotel on the outskirts of Winnipeg with the blue moon outside their window at night, and at twilight the blue land that rolled flat out to the horizon. They stayed until Wesley's paycheck ran out, and she suggested that he take her home, said her sister Gladys. "You mean you live here in Winnipeg?" "Of course." She stood in the motel bathroom applying mascara, which besides painting her fingernails unusual colors is the only makeup she ever wears. "But I thought you were coming from Saskatoon." "I hitched to Saskatoon," she explained, examining her teeth, rubbing her finger across them. "I hitched there with my boyfriend. It didn't work out, so I came back without him. That's where I was coming from when you found me." In his favorite story of their love, Wesley claims he knew right then and there that he was up to his neck beyond the point of no return. She was the most delicate, beautiful thing he'd ever seen, he says. He was in love with her flax-colored eyes, her long, silky hair, her small hands and feet, the way she'd curl up beside him like a kitten, the way she rode him at night till the stars seemed to shower out of the cosmos and fall all around them.
Oh, beautiful.
It's a very interesting character. Susan Nielsen is our next reader, and she grew up in Ontario, but now she lives in Vancouver. She did, as Kate pointed out, write for Degrassi, and she's written for quite a lot of TV, but she's also really made a mark with her books for a slightly younger crowd, sort of the early teens. I first discovered her with Word Nerd, which is a very funny book. And that was followed by Dear George Clooney, Please Marry My Mum, which is a terrific title, Susan. That's got to be, like, really, that's a winner right there. And she has a new book coming out this spring called We Are All Made of Molecules. But tonight she's going to introduce us to the Reluctant Journal of Henry K. Larson. Please welcome Susan Nielsen.
Thank you. I said that asshole George Clooney went and got married.
Ruined your
He
book.
wasn't supposed to do that. It's going to hurt book sales, I'm sure. He was an avowed bachelor. Anyway, what do you need to know about the sections I'm going to read? This is the story of 13-year-old Henry K. Larson. He and his father have recently moved to Vancouver, where they're trying to pick up the pieces of their lives. We soon learn that a horrible incident has occurred where they used to live on Vancouver Island. Henry's 15-year-old brother, Jesse, relentlessly tormented by a particular guy at his school, Scott Marlin, took matters into his own hands one day, took his dad's hunting rifle to school, shot and killed his tormentor, and then shot and killed himself. There is still some humor in the book, I promise. So I think that's all you need to know. Henry has started a new high school in Vancouver. He's trying to fly under the radar. But it's hard to fly under the radar because this boy named Farley has insisted that he come with him to a Reach for the Top practice. And at that practice, he's also met this girl named Alberta, who he says he doesn't like at all, but methinks he doth protest too much. I'm going to read two sections. The first shorter section, he's just describing why his brother was never accepted into a pod, as he calls them. And this is a journal that his therapist has suggested he write, which he does so reluctantly, hence the title. The first week of high school at Port Salish Secondary, the new kids did bonding activities with the older kids. Bowling parties, pizza parties, that kind of thing. It was the school's way of making them feel welcome. On Friday, each new kid had to get up on stage in the auditorium and say a few words in front of the entire school. When it was Jesse's turn, he said he liked playing on his PS3, reading manga, and watching the Global Wrestling Federation's Saturday Night Smash-Up. It was a little dorky maybe, but no big deal. So he couldn't figure out why the entire audience was laughing like crazy. When he left the stage, the principal took him aside and said, "Jesse Larson, XYZ. What? XYZ. Examine your zipper. Jesse looked down. His fly had been unzipped during his entire speech. Again, no big deal. Except it was. Mom had told Jesse the week before that she refused to do any of his laundry unless he put it into the hamper, and Jesse never got around to it. So when he discovered that morning that he was out of clean Y-fronts, he decided that no underwear was better than dirty underwear. That's right. He went to school commando, meaning every single kid at Port Salish Secondary didn't see his underwear through his fly. They saw his you-know-whats, his family jewels, his nuggets, his love spuds, his balls. A kid in the front row took pictures with his phone. I was still in elementary school and didn't have a cell phone, but a lot of kids in my class did. So, along with every other kid in Port Salish and beyond, I saw the photographic evidence within the hour. The school went into overdrive, of course. This is a form of bullying, and we won't tolerate bullying of any kind, blah, blah, blah. The photos got taken down pretty fast, at least the ones that were posted on Facebook. But the other stuff, The stuff the grown-ups couldn't see or maybe didn't want to see had just begun. Scott Marlin gave Jesse his nickname, the one that stuck through his first 2 years of high school until he put an end to it for good. Ballsack. For almost 2 years, the boy formerly known as Jesse was called Ballsack. Some kids even called him that in front of the teachers, who thought they were calling him Balzac after some dead French writer. I'm not saying Jesse didn't have his quirks. Scott would have found other things to tease him about. His zits, which were bad, his obsession with the Global Wrestling Federation, the way he giggled when he got nervous. But the Ballsack event was the biggie. It was the match that lit the fuse that exploded in our faces last June. As my enriched English teacher, Mr. Shell, would say, that, Henry, is what we call an inciting incident. And now I'm going to move forward in time. We are now in home ec class in his Henry School in Vancouver. Monday, February 4th. Intriguing fact. The most poisonous animals on Earth are often the most colorful. Why? Because they want to be seen. That way, predators have to eat only a couple of them before their buddies go, hang on, if I eat this colorful dart frog / coral snake / monarch butterfly, I'm going to die a very painful death, just like my buddy Bob. Pretty soon, everyone knows to leave them alone. Alberta is a human version of the dart frog. You can't help but notice her, but you learn very quickly that she's toxic. Like today in home ec. I sat at the sewing machine facing hers. Alberta was wearing a cut-off jean skirt with green and white striped tights underneath and a powder blue t-shirt with a picture of a tabby cat in a sweater, playing the piano. On her head was a red beret. Okay, class, said Mrs. Bardis. Today we're going to use the sewing machine to finish our tote bags. For the past few classes, we've been cutting out fabric and using fabric paint to create designs. I painted a bunch of tulips. Alberta painted a skull and crossbones. As per usual, she acted like I wasn't even there, but then her thread got tangled up in the bobbin. Hey, you guys, she said, help. No please, no nothing. But my mother raised me to be a gentleman. I got up and moved around to her station. She didn't even nudge over an inch or anything, which meant that as I was showing her how to rethread her machine, I was forced to breathe in the scent of her hair. It smelled like tropical fruits, but still. I sat back down. Next time, you'll be able to do it yourself, I told her, and the name's Henry. She didn't answer, not even a thank you. Rude. A good 5 minutes later, she said, where'd you learn to sew? It took me a moment to realize she was talking to me. My mom taught me the basics a couple of years ago, so I could make my own Halloween costume. What was the costume? My ears prickled, and I was pretty sure they were turning pink. Captain Underpants? She laughed. It was like machine gun fire followed by a donkey's bray. What was it, a giant pair of Y-fronts? Better than that, I said. It was a flesh-colored one-piece with buttons for the nipples and belly button. I stuffed it full of pillows, then we bought an enormous pair of underwear to put over top. Awesome, she said, and I actually think she meant it. Who are you going to give your tote bag to? My mom, I said. I'm going to give mine to my older sister, she said, because it's ugly like her. Then she smiled and looked right at me, and it was the first time I noticed she had a lazy eye. What's your sister's name, I asked. Ontario. Seriously? No, her name's Cricket. Stop. I poop you not. Mom got to choose her name, and her favorite soap opera character on The Young and the Restless was called Cricket. Yep, we are total white trash. Who picked your name? My dad. They were living in Fort McMurray, Alberta when I was, conceived. Well, look on the bright side, at least they didn't call you Fort McMurray, and at least you weren't conceived in Newfoundland. And then he's crossed out. It was kind of adorable. In Fort Salish, everyone thought I had a crush on Jody Marlin, but they didn't understand that Jody and I just got each other. We both secretly wanted to be contestants on a show called Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Even though we mocked the show all the time and dubbed it Are You Smarter Than a Cheese Grater? We still liked playing with Lego, even though we knew we were too old. And we loved exploring the tide pools together by the ocean's edge at low tide. I still remember the day we found a perfect sand dollar. Perfect, not a fragment missing, not even a crack. I let Jody keep it because she'd been having a bad day. Then my brother did what he did. I saw Jody just once after that. I walked to her house about a week after it happened. I don't know how I got up the guts to do that. It wasn't bravery, that's for sure. You know when you're having a bad dream and part of you knows it's a dream and that part of you is shouting, "It's just a dream, wake up!" But you don't wake up, you just keep having the nightmare? That's what it felt like as I walked to her house. A part of my brain kept shouting, "Abort mission, abort mission!" But it was like I was sleepwalking. I just kept going. Jody answered the door. She looked terrible. Her face was blotchy and red and her eyes were puffy from crying. I know I looked just as bad. We stared at each other, and for a moment, I really thought we were going to fall into each other's arms and blubber like a couple of babies. But then Mr. Marlin appeared behind her. His enormous frame filled the doorway. "What the hell are you doing here?" he shouted, his eyes bulging out of his head. "Stay away from my family! Stay away from my daughter!" Then he slammed the door in my face. I guess that's when my fury started to grow. I know Jody's address. Sometimes I think about writing to her, but what would I say? Seen any good starfish lately? Sorry my brother killed your brother? Yeah. No. Just before dismissal time, Mrs. Bardis walked around the room, checking out everyone's sewing. She held up Alberta's and said, "This is a fine example of shoddy workmanship." Alberta just scowled, then the bell rang. "How come you weren't at the Reach for the Top practices last week?" she said as we gathered up our stuff. Farley dragged me there that one time. I never said I was joining. Alberta looked at me. Well, one eye looked at me. The other one looked somewhere over my shoulder. "Let me guess, you think it's too nerdy." "Well, did you see the kids in that room?" "So," she said, "have you looked in the mirror lately?" I confess, that hurt. "Why did you join?" I asked her. "You don't seem nerdy enough," she asked. I was going to say smart enough, but I didn't. "Here's the thing about Reach for the Top," she said as we walked out of class. "It's so nerdy, it's crossed back over into cool." I snorted. "Hey, what if," she said. "If you want to stop yourself from doing something fun just because you're afraid of what other people might think, that is totally your beeswax." Then she walked away. The green and white striped tights only made her big thighs look bigger. And then he's crossed out. They looked spectacular. Thank you.
Those are terrific characters, and it's a very gripping story. And our third reader is Raziel Reed, who nailed the GG for his debut novel, which doesn't happen very often. He's also got the particular privilege, I guess, or what would be the right word, of being the very youngest winner of a Governor General's Literary Award. So he's a big, big talent. And he's going to read to us from When Everything Feels Like the Movies. Please welcome Raziel Reed.
It's good to be home. Thank you for having me, Charlene. The first reading that I ever gave was in Winnipeg at McNally Robinson to an audience that was largely made up of my family. And before the reading, my mom came up to me and said, "Can you please read a chapter that doesn't have a lot of sex in it?" So naturally, I read from someone else's book. But I'm hoping that they're used to me now, because they're here again tonight. So, let's see if I can find this. I don't think there's anything you need to know, so I'll just jump right in. I went over to Angela's house so she could read my tarot. I brought a couple of roaches, which I stole from the ashtray on the nightstand next to my mom and Ray's bed. We didn't have a pipe or papers, and Abel was too busy playing guitar to open his door and lend us his bomb, so we looked on YouTube to see what we could make. "We're out of apples," Angela said, closing the tab, "but we have a can of Coke." Sorry, is someone whispering? I keep on hearing whispering.
I think it's just the sound bounce.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. We're out of apples, Angela said, closing the tab, but we have a can of Coke. We went into the kitchen and took turns chugging it. This is so ratchet, it better be on my Wikipedia one day, I laughed. Angela took the first hoot back in her room. She made me take a picture of the smoke streaming out of her mouth so she could post it on Instagram. We could still hear Abel playing through the walls. It sounds like he's right next to us. Can you hear him masturbating? I asked, not even trying to pretend I wasn't hopeful. I wear earplugs, mostly because my mom and dad's room is above mine and the ceiling is as thin as the walls. How often? Fridays. Every Friday? Friday at 10 after the news. Glamour. Do you ever hear your mom and Ray? I'm surprised you haven't. Speaking of Ray, Angela picked the devil card from the deck. Ugh, please tell me the next one you pull is death. She finished reading my cards, and I was excited because they said I was going to be famous. But you don't have any talent, Angela said. I do so. I write a killer suicide letter. I got up from the bed and went over to her mirror to put on some lip gloss. Are you sure you're gay? Angela asked as she watched me. The sad thing is, she wasn't even being sarcastic. Angela wanted me, but I think that's mostly because I didn't want her, and gay or not, Angela thought every guy should want her. Of course not, Ange, I said. I like beer and bitches and Chanel Mademoiselle. You couldn't even get it up for me? As desirable as you are, who would be the girl in the relationship? I'd let you be the girl, she said, grabbing her pack of cigarettes and opening the window. I wouldn't mind. You'd have to buy a strap-on. I'll steal my mom's. Your dad is freaky. You don't think my mom actually uses it on him, do you? She asked, shuddering as she lit a cigarette. Well, he's a cop. So, he spends a lot of time in prisons. It just isn't fair, she sighed. We'd be perfect together. I don't know. You might get bored with me. I'm not enough of an asshole. Yeah, he wouldn't screw me over enough. And I wouldn't give you an STD. Isn't that like a prerequisite? You're wrong, she said, blowing smoke rings. You are enough of an asshole. There was a knock on the door, and she asked, Who is it? Me, Abel said, poking his head in. I almost tossed a cigarette for you, jerk. Mom's pissed. You got a letter from school. For what? Ditching class, failing class, indecent exposure in class. It really could be anything with you, couldn't it? Bite me. Or me, I said from the vanity. He didn't answer and didn't even look at me, but his face turned red. Are you constipated or something? Angela asked. I heard you playing guitar, Abel, I said, walking in front of him so he'd have to look. You're really good. Thanks, he nodded, eyes to the floor. Is Mom home? Angela asked. Bingo. You think she has any pills in her room? I hear you're selling them now, I said to Abel. How does it feel to be worshipped? Anything good? Angela asked. He shrugged. Pills, mostly Secanols. Secanols, I laughed. Neely O'Hara lives. Yeah, my mom's shrink is old school, Angela said. He hands out the shit the FDA banned in the 70s. Your mother is so glamorous. She's like Sharon Tate pre-stab wounds. She only has a couple pills left, Abel said. Or Marilyn, pre-Kennedy's. Don't take more than 2, he insisted. Those fuckers ruined her, I told Angela, who just shook her head. She is not that glamorous. I took 3, and I couldn't move my legs, Abel said. I couldn't feel anything. She dyes her hair from a box, Angela said. Did you know John Kennedy was bad in bed? I asked her. I got so cold, Abel shivered. But I'm sure JFK Jr. wasn't. I mean, you don't think. And it looks yellow most of the time, Angela rolled her eyes. I would be so devastated. I was a fucking Vulcan, Abel said. I made the Vulcan salute as Angela tossed her cigarette out the window. I'm going to check out the pharmacy, she said, brushing past her brother. I'm serious, he yelled after her. Don't take too many. She's going to notice. As soon as she turned the hall corner, I closed the door and backed Abel against it. If your mother doesn't notice the lipstick smudged on your if your mother doesn't notice the lipstick smudged on your dad's uniform, I said, almost touching his mouth with my lips, then I highly doubt she'll miss a few dolls. He didn't say anything. He barely even breathed. I wanted to kiss him, but I had to laugh. He was a sophomore, and all he really cared about was his guitar. He took a bong hoot every half hour. I think he might have been in love with me, but I didn't love him back. I didn't even love Luke. I just wanted him to love me. I guess I wanted everyone to love me, but I don't think I loved anyone, really, except Keith, but that was different. Carly's coming over later, he said, quietly, because our faces were almost touching. Do you play your guitar and sing songs for her? I asked. What? I kissed him. I'm serious, he said, pushing me away. But I like it rough, I said, and it sounded so sad coming out of my mouth that I wished I were deaf. I walked over to Angela's dresser and plucked a tissue from the box. I smudged gloss on your lips, I said, slowly wiping it off. His lips parted as I touched them. I didn't know if it was because he was so nervous or because he wanted me to kiss him again. But when I tried to kiss him, he held me back by my arms. Carly will taste you, he said. I wondered what I tasted like. He pushed me away when we heard Angela call from the living room. Abel opened the door, and we walked down the hallway together, our arms touching until we reached the end, and he stepped away from me. Angela was standing by the liquor cabinet, pouring vodka into 2 glasses. Find anything? I asked, as she passed me a drink. Some white things, she shrugged, dropping a couple in my hand. Exotic. You have to swallow them with booze because they don't work otherwise. Yes, they do, you fiend, Abel said. He walked over and snatched one of the pills from her hand, popping it in his mouth like a tic-tac. Well, Angela sighed, taking a gulp. Not as well. Abel fell back on the couch while Angela took the bottle of Grey Goose to the kitchen and held it under the tap. How many times have we refilled that bottle? I asked when she came back. We're probably just drinking water. I sat next to Abel on the couch as he turned on the TV. So close, the hair on our arms got staticky and intertwined. I could tell he was holding his breath. Angela turned off the lights and did a few spins around the living room, her drink falling through the air like raindrops. We started to feel like our hearts were beating through the small screen. I watched a bead of sweat drip down the back of Abel's neck in the flickering light. He leaned forward, flipping through channels. The screen blurred. The pictures were kaleidoscopic, and it was like the channels were changing on their own. They flicked rapidly, like eyelids during an OD. The images changed so fast that all I could see were colors, bombs, blood, babies on fire, and stardom. Angela and I couldn't stop laughing. We dropped to the floor and wrapped ourselves in each other's arms. I buried my face in her hair. It smelled like lullabies, like a lie. Abel was a statue. His eyes were as wide as disco balls. They spun as he watched the screen, as we entered it. I unraveled myself from Angela, crawling toward Abel. He was perfectly still, on his mark, in his light. He looked pretty and plastic, like a mannequin. I took the remote from between his fingers. His knuckles were white from clutching it so tightly. I threw the remote at the screen, at my own head, and it went static. It was like the static was prickling and humming in our veins. When Angela wasn't looking, I kissed Abel and he came back to life. But he didn't kiss me back, so it was like kissing a Madame Tussauds wax figure. It was so quiet that I could hear him start blinking again. Then Angela, rolling on the floor, put her hand to her forehead and said, "Sometimes, when I close my eyes, it feels like I'm dying." I looked down at her. Even though everything was dark, the streetlights outside were shining through the window, and I could make out her heart-shaped face. Sweat gleamed on her forehead as she rubbed her palms across the carpet. She closed her eyes and stopped moving. "Is she dead?" Abel laughed, and everything felt so unreal. I danced by myself while Abel rolled Angela onto her side so she wouldn't choke on her own vomit. I took his hand and led him to the couch. His skin was sticky, but I thought that was sweet. He fell back into the cushions like he was falling through the clouds. He looked over my shoulders to make sure Angela was still extinguished, and then climbed his hands up the curve of my spine. I licked a tear rolling down his cheek. He wasn't blinking, like he was scared that if he did, we'd all drown. Thank you.